Hi guys, and welcome to a Shauna and Joe Show Riot special. This was originally going to be talking about the riots that are happening in London at the moment. Obviously everybody's hearing about them, but last night it also kicked off in Bristol and other places across the country. So we're going to be talking about what sparked the riots off in London, some of the things that have been happening there, but also the feeling in Bristol and what happened last night as well. I guess the place to start is London really, isn't it, with everything that's been going on.
Okay, so I've been watching the news quite closely, and in terms of the mainstream media, I am quite sceptical about the information that we get presented with. Not everyone knows the events that started last week, so I'm going to give you my take on it, and I could be wrong on certain things, but this is only information that I've received through the media and also through social networking websites. Okay, so last week Thursday, Mark Duggan was shot and killed by London police officers in an area in North London, Tottenham. The statement issued by the police was quite vague with its language, and it indicated that a police officer was injured with gunshot wounds, and Mark Duggan was shot and killed by police officers. It didn't specifically say that Mark had shot after the police, but the language suggested that. That happened last week Thursday. On Saturday, family and friends of Mark Duggan had reportedly said that even up until that point, the police themselves had not contacted the family to let them know that Mark had in fact been killed, and a lot of the information that they had received was through the media. That is obviously something totally disgraceful by the police officer, and that is what initiated the peaceful riot on Saturday, the peaceful protest on Saturday, with members of Mark's family and friends walking from Broadwater Farm down to the police station in Tottenham, and was just outside really hoping for answers. It was all very peaceful and non-violent, but the police's slow response, or lack of response even, to come out of the police station to talk to the family and friends to address what had actually gone on and the circumstances of Mark's death, is what got a few individuals quite angry. How they portrayed their anger is still a little bit unknown. Some have said that they saw a police car, and one thing I saw on the news said that it was like a red flag to a bull. They saw the police car, they were angry at how they've been dealt with, set fire to the police car. Now personally, what I think's happened, and what a lot of people think has happened, is a lot of opportunists have saw a few acts of violence and have decided to jump on to that and use this as an excuse for random acts of violence, looting, criminal activity, which is obviously complete disrespect to Mark Duggan and his name and his family's name. The family obviously have gone on to the news to disassociate themselves with any violence and have publicly not condoned what's gone on. Having said that, there's lots of things that haven't necessarily been noted by the mainstream media. There's footage on YouTube of a 16-year-old girl being attacked by police officers, and it suggested that she wasn't being violent in any way, and about 15 to 20 officers jumped on her, beating her with their sticks and just being very heavy-handed to a young female girl, and that within itself has also instigated more violence because people are outraged at that behaviour.
But one thing I really wanted to say about that, and I've only seen the clip on YouTube, so I can only go on what I've seen, but even if she was being in some way violent towards the police, one 16-year-old girl, it doesn't take 15, 20 police to beat her down. Even if she was being violent, and it says she wasn't, from what I've heard she wasn't being, but even if she was, that's not the way the police deal with something when the situation is already tense. They already know there's tension in the community, and to me, the way that the police often deal with situations can really incite people. I mean, we'll get onto Bristol in a minute, but even the way the police dealt with me, and I was completely peaceful in what was going on, but I was down there witnessing it, and even the way they were dealing with me made me feel angry and frustrated because they weren't trying to, hear anything. I do think I have a few views on this. The first thing is Mark's family's disassociated themselves with the violence. I think some of the violence that's going on is really bad. It's shameful that we are putting people in our communities, not just talking about Bristol, in London. Londoners are putting people in their communities' lives at risk, and I know it's been all over the news a lot. They're showing these clips a lot of this woman who, she was saying if she didn't get out of the place they were burning, then she reckons she might have died, kind of thing. But the media do like to kind of explode that up and keep other things down, but at the same time, we shouldn't be doing this to our community. This is not the way to deal with it. There's only one place, I think it was in Birmingham, where they actually went for the police stations. Now, they're angry at the police. I think there's a lot of tension. There's everybody knows in the inner city there's a lot of underlying tension between young people and the police, and not just young people, the community and the police. There's bad communication, you know, things are dealt with in not the best ways, and over years and years and years, it feels like this has been an underlying issue. It always has been, and I think a lot of these kids just have, it's a way to vent their aggressions and their frustration, not aggression, their frustration, but at the same time, I'm not condoning anything where you're destructing your own community, because to me that's completely backwards, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. Okay, now obviously that's what was happening in London, and that's been going on for a few days now. Last night in Bristol, it all kicked off in St Paul's, leading down into Cabot Circus and Stokes Croft again. I was down there last night from quite early on, and I've got a few mixed views on this, so I'm going to kind of say how I feel, and there are different sides to this. The first thing that I want to say is a lot of the community around here, especially the older community, are absolutely outraged at the way the young people have been acting. Then they don't see it as a constructive way of dealing with things. I believe that peaceful protest is a good way to start. I believe that the government often doesn't listen until it gets violent, and the violence has now got people talking about these situations that wouldn't have normally talked about them, even if they're there saying, you know, this only happened because of the riot and this and that. It's taken this to make people talk about these things, and I agree with that. But like I said, a lot of the community are outraged at the way it's been directed at our own community. Okay, yeah, like I was saying, I was down there last night from quite early on, and one thing I really wanted to find out is why people felt the need to riot. From my opinion, a lot of the young people from the area were there almost, you know, they didn't really have a reason to riot. It wasn't that they were fighting for a particular cause. Like when we had the riots before, it was anti-Tesco, it was anti the way the police had dealt with the squatters, and it was very much directed at that. This seemed a lot more, you know, sporadic, and people were jumping on the bandwagon of what was happening in London. Also, I do feel, you know, people wanted to show that Bristol was, you know, hard and Bristol could do what London's doing and things like that. But that said, I think that if there was a lot more communication between police and the community, and that the young people didn't have such disengagement from the police and the institution, this situation would never have occurred. You know, if the police and the community had better communication, if the young people respected the police, if the police respected the young people, which they don't at all, this wouldn't have happened. So as much as I think a lot of the young people weren't down there for a specific cause last night, I do also feel that underlying there's been a lot of problems. There's a lot of, you know, growing up in the inner city, you've got, you know, a lot of race issues to deal with. You know, you're growing up in a world where if you are black, it is harder. And I'm white, and I can see that. You know, I've seen that growing up, and that's an underlying thing that people don't realise. Also, a class issue. You know, about the rich and the poor. And around here, you do have more poor families. There's less things to do, and there's frustration about that situation. So I think there's a lot of underlying issues that need to be dealt with. You can't just deal with the riot. The riot is really the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to it than that. There were also people out of town last night, or they weren't from this area, who were really instigating things, and you know, they were the ones that were really destroying our community. I had to stop a guy from smashing up a pizza place just because the pizza shop shut. They wouldn't serve him because of the riot, and I had to stop him smashing it up. And I asked him why he was rioting, and he told me he was rioting because of the police. And I said, why are you now targeting a pizza shop? Go target the police if that's where your problem is. Go do that, you know. But don't go smashing up, you know, innocent small businesses, which is what makes our community. Also, I had a massive argument with this guy who smashed a car down on City Road in the middle of the riot. He just picked up a brick and smashed it into the windscreen. He wasn't from around here, and he's destroying part of the community. And I told him, I said, what are you doing? You're destroying the community. And all he had to say was, oh, you know, sorry, and moved on. And then a car got set on fire around by St Paul's Park, and I was speaking to the guy whose car it was, and he was a young guy. He was saying, I'm really into, you know, fighting for the cause, and I'm really into finding out what's really going on in the world, looking past the mainstream media and finding out what's actually happening. But I'm asleep in my bed and I'm waking up because my car's been set on fire and it's completely burnt out.
I think what's quite sad about all of this is if you do ask a lot of the people that have been rioting, if you ask them why they're doing it, you're not really getting any proper answers. You're not really getting any intelligence as to why they feel as though they need to be out there and making a point and making a stand. And I think that's the saddest thing about it. That's the thing that's heartbreaking. It is almost like people are just jumping on a bandwagon, and I've tried to rack my brain to think why are especially like the other cities involved, Leeds and Birmingham and Bristol, and I think Manchester's involved now, and Liverpool, and I'm thinking, why have they followed suit? Is it because they're watching what's being reported on the news and they're seeing a lot of people managing to get free trainers and free electrical goods and thinking, oh, actually, like they've used this for their own financial gain? Okay, I'm not really sure if I'm agreeing with the cause. I'm not really sure what the cause is, but I can get paid, I can get free stuff, I can, go and pick up 12 laptops and whatever the reason is. And I think that has a lot to do with the consumerist society that we're living in. Throughout the media, throughout adverts, music videos, all kinds of stuff, we are being told that buy, have the best of this, have the latest of that. And a lot of the communities where money isn't affluent, people want those things and can't obtain them, can't afford to obtain them, don't necessarily have the skills in order to train to get the jobs to have them, don't necessarily want to wait that long. And so the consumerist world that we're living in thinks, that it facilitates these riots because people are able to get those flashy things that they've wanted for a long time, and they're able to get them now with the added adrenaline and the added rush and the added bonus of being able to smash up things and release frustration in a violent manner. And that's what saddens me the most about all of this.
I agree. I do agree with you on that. I do. But I do think, like you said, they are releasing this frustration, and that frustration has come from somewhere. There was one thing I wanted to read out, which a friend of mine sent to me, and this is really on point. Now, this guy, he's a 19-year-old guy. He's from Bristol, and what he said is, in no way am I condoning the disgusting violence, arson or looting. However, what I also find disgusting is the veiled racism and class hatred coming from various people and media outlets when discussing recent events. I believe social unrest is a direct consequence of government policies and the economic downturn. I'm told the governor of the Bank of England warned David Cameron that there would be civil unrest if he went through with such immediate and stringent cuts. I'm sure police cuts, rising youth unemployment, abolishing EMAs and tripling tuition fees contribute to young people feeling they have no meaningful stake in society. This is undeniably a contributing factor to the rioting. As for the looting, if we are constantly being told to be consumers, if we are enveloped in a culture that says material wealth is king, looting must surely be, although immoral, an opportunistic event, even rational. Martin Luther King once said, "Rioting is the language of the unheard. I'm just trying to understand what my country is trying to say." And I think, that was a really good point he made, and he told me he wrote that last night when he was just couldn't sleep, thinking about all these situations. And I do feel like the young people from our areas, from the inner city areas, from the poorer areas, feel unheard. They feel like they don't mean anything. There's institutional racism within the majority of schools. They don't get the same support, and there's a lot of problems that they feel frustrated about, and it's been going on for years and years and years. And this is just, it took something to spark it off. And maybe now they don't, it's not even that, like I said before, it's not even they know the reasons why they're doing this, but all the frustration is in there. It's all inside of them. They've seen it from their generation, from their parents' generation, and it's an ongoing problem. And I feel very frustrated about it because I work with young people, and I think there's so much, so much talent that's missed and so much opportunity, and, the way they're being taught isn't right, and so many things like that really frustrate me because they're amazing young people, every single one of them. Everybody has so much potential and they're not being shown their full potential or how to attain it, and I think that's something that builds up in frustration within areas over years and decades even. It comes out at times like this,
I kind of want to discuss the parent element in all of this. I mean, I know the police have made pleas, you know, publicly saying, you know, parents, can you please, you know, make your young people stay at home and not go out tonight and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people, especially people not from particularly inner city or deprived areas, they're, you know, saying, I blame the parents, which personally I think is very unfair. You know, it is the summer, it is the school holidays, people are not in school, they're not at college or whatnot, and if there's not much to do within the community, or there's not much for them to do to occupy their time, things like rioting becomes exciting. It's a way to unite in a warped sense, which is really sad, but it has brought gangs together. Like, you know, in London there's a lot of postcode beef and a lot of people that, you know, fear to go from one part of London to another in fear of violence and stuff, and those people have united in some sort of political uprising against the government. And it's sad to think that they can only unite in a violent way, and it's sad to think that they're only uniting in this way, but it's because they share a similar sense of oppression. They feel oppressed, and they want to do something about it. And I suppose maybe they're not really sure about the right ways to go about it, and who is sure of what the right ways are. When you're fighting against hegemony, when you're fighting against the ideological state apparatus, who really knows what to do? Because, you know, they are superpowers, and they are what enforce our thinking, and they are what enforces you know, everything we see, and, you know, the way that we conduct ourselves and stuff. But in terms of parents, you know, what can these parents do? You know, if you've got an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, they are officially an adult. If they want to leave the family home and want to go out and make themselves heard, whether it's positive or negative, how is that parent realistically supposed to keep that person in? And does a parent want to keep that person in? Maybe that parent agrees with the point and the stand they're trying to make. And I think it's very easy for the government and the police and people that, you know, don't really have a clue to be able to say, parents, you know, keep your kids at home. And I think that's something that needs to look at. And if those parents are seen to be failing, where is the support for those parents in order to try and raise their children in a well-balanced way, where they are able to express their views without necessarily resorting to violence and criminal activity?
Okay, right, now obviously you know what Facebook's like these days, on top of everything, so there's been a lot of comments on Facebook, a lot of people sharing their opinions. I just wanted to share a few opinions that I've come across that are interesting. Someone said, it seems like a lot of people are sheep, they're just following. Rioters are rioting but they don't have a clue why. At least fight for something for a reason instead of causing all this mess and headache for no reason. Someone else said, so at what point are the police finally going to admit that this has now turned into terrorism? There is no difference now other than people haven't got a Muslim or some other minority to pin it all on. It's British and it's internal. What he's saying is, if it was all Muslims doing this, it would have already been linked to Al-Qaeda, it would have been linked to terrorism, and he's saying, when are they going to wake up and call this terrorism? Or does that mean what's happened before isn't terrorism? Interesting points there. Somebody said, riots in the UK, if success is a 10-foot high wall, yet you continually give people a 5-foot high ladder, people are going to create their own ladders. I'm surprised it's taken so long. Other people are saying, you know, Birmingham, Bristol, Nottingham, Leeds and Liverpool, it's not your argument and you're hurting innocent people. What is wrong with you? You've lost your mind. Stop this, it makes no sense at all. I'm ashamed of you all. It's greed and a total lack of respect for others. So a lot of mixed opinions that I've got there, and that's what I'm feeling from Facebook. A lot of people are looking at it from their own viewpoints, and that's what this show's about. We want to get people discussing. We want to hear what people say, because this is a community show and it's about you guys. You know, it's about our opinions, it's about your opinions. And that's what I've been hearing through Facebook. Lots of different opinions, and Shauna's got a very interesting Facebook opinion as well, which I think we should be really good to talk about as well. I
mean, on Facebook there has been a few things, you know, with people saying, if you're going to make a stand, why are you, you know, like targeting small businesses, and why don't you go and target Parliament or police stations, like the government symbols, the physical symbols of government and, you know, the law, which obviously a lot of people aren't doing. But this one comment that was sent to me, which I find is really interesting and definitely gives people a different perspective and food for thought, and I'll read. Says, as a young person myself, I know how frustrating situations can be with little help from the Met Police, but it's time to read between the lines. Why are all of London's top people on holiday the weekend this all happens? Come on, think hard. This has all been planned, every detail, by the G7, aka Illuminati. It's pretty simple, an old school tactic, cause and effect. Cause, start mass pandemonium amongst the people to start and spread an uprising against the system in order to bring in martial law. It starts as a simple problem, a government cover-up. We've all seen how they do it in the movies and in FBI films. Then it escalates into riots, then into looting, and then they come with tactical defence strategies, i.e. rubber bullets and water hoses, etc. We retaliate and so on. Then that gives them the right to raid our homes, take our stuff, leaving us defenceless. Then the effect, the start of the new world order. One government, one currency, microchip implants, and by the way, don't forget the financial market news you are also hearing. They are all connected. Now, that is a very isolated opinion that I've seen on Facebook. I haven't seen anyone else put comments and such like this, and I think it definitely gives people food for thought. And perhaps, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing to read between the lines and try and see what's going on behind the scenes.
I'd like to say something about that as well. I feel like people are so quick to dismiss anything that is portrayed as conspiracy or, you know, really far out and things like that. The one thing I would say to anybody who's watching is look at it yourself. You know, don't take my word for it, don't take their word for it. Go and look, research. There's a lot of research you can do out there. There's a lot of information out there, and you know, it depends how deeply you want to go into things, but these things are happening, and there's a lot of things that are orchestrated that don't come across as orchestrated because everything is controlled. You know, the media we hear, we know that's not what's really happening. We see it in our own area that they don't really portray what's happening. They want to have their opinion heard. They want it to be from their point of view. So go and look it up, man. Go and research it yourself. You know. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is a few things: how the police acted, and also how the mainstream media portrayed things. Now, I've seen a lot of things on the media about this, as I'm sure everybody has. One of the things that I picked up on is that even though they're trying to come across like they're fair and they're balanced and all of this, they're not. They're being very careful about the way they word things. They're not making it a race issue, even though the way that they are saying things makes it sound like it really is a race issue. You hear them asking all the different people, so what kind of person is down there? You hear them asking these kind of questions like, and then the people replying know that they can't say, well, you know, young black men and things like that. And I'm not saying it's all black men at all, because, you know, it's not. It's all kinds of people. So they're being very careful about the way they say things, but you can tell by the way they're speaking that they are directing it at ethnic minority people, like, completely. And that's not the case at all, but it's just so underlying. It's just there, but without them saying it, so that they get away with it, because if they did say, oh, well, you know, it's a majority black men, then it would all havoc would break loose and you know, they'd be labelled as being racist and everything. But they're being racist. They're just doing it in a way that allows them to get away with it, really. Also, the way that when people do have things to say, and I urge you to go onto YouTube, there is some really good clips of people being interviewed, and when it doesn't really fit in with what they want to be broadcast, and it's a live broadcast, the way they cut in, the way they're disrespectful. There's one where they're speaking to an elder guy and he is very knowledgeable about the situation, and they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear what he's got to say. And that's censorship from the BBC. And to me, as a journalist, it's your job to portray what is actually happening, to take a non-biased position and to say, this is what's happening, make your mind up. Journalism isn't doing that for the majority, you know. So that's one thing that really, you know, really gets to me, because it doesn't happen. And
it hasn't been doing that for a long time, and I think that's why it's so great that, you know, mobile phones have got video cameras on now, and people are able to document what they really see and put it up on things like the internet. And because mainstream media has been censored for a very long time, and I think that's one of the reasons why we do this show, so that we try and get the truth out there. Our own voice out there.
But saying that, you know, people have had trouble loading things up to YouTube and things over these riots, and that's another form of censorship. YouTube has got all kinds of crazy videos on there that I don't think are appropriate to be on YouTube at all. You know, you've got really not nice videos on there, and bringing up something that's an actual a look at a situation that isn't what they want to hear, and they're not letting the videos be uploaded. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the police, which is where a lot of the tension really has come from, and the way that the police deal with the situation. And I'm not always saying that you know, it's an easy situation to control or to you know, make sure they do it the right way, but the way the police speak to the community, the way that they have no respect at all for what's going on in the community, or if you're from the community, they don't respect you. Like I said, I was down all night at the riots, and not once was I involved in anything. I tried to speak to the police because I'm interested in hearing their point of view. They didn't want to speak to me. They were really, really rude to me about things, and I felt myself getting angry and frustrated at them, and I wasn't even there to go and smash things up. I was there to you know, see what's happening in my community, and just the way they speak to you makes you angry. And then you've got a big bunch of people who are already tense and already angry, and the police go and say something really stupid that just sparks off another thing, and that's something that I see over and over again, and I think the police really need to step up what they're doing. At the end of the day, you know, they might say, well, yeah, but you know, the youngsters are doing this as well. The police are in a position where it's their job to be responsible. This is what their job is to do, is to protect the community, and they're not doing it.
But you really have to wonder if, like, the way that the police do talk to youths is it ignorance, or, like, you know, lack of ability in knowing how to talk to young people, or is it deliberate in order to get them riled up and angry? Like, you really have to question what their motives are sometimes.
And the other thing I would say is, as in all walks of life, people are people. There are some police who really are good and really do their job, and there's some police that are really bad and who really incite things. So I think it comes down again to just people, you know. Humanity. Some police, yeah, humanity. Some police do it to get a kick. Some police probably do it because they don't like the area. Some police probably do it because they're racist. There's lots of different reasons. There also are good police out there, and I'm not one of these people who doesn't see those things, because if we lived in a world without police, there would be a lot more problems than there are. But the police cause other problems, and in a way, bigger community problems. So I don't want to come across as that, because I do think at times, and you know, if your house got robbed, you'd be ringing the police. You know, so I think, you know, at times they're needed, but the way they deal with youngsters, I don't know if it's miscommunication. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they want to do it or what, or they like to get the reaction. They know if they get a reaction. And they've done it to me a number of times, not just last night, but a number of times, where they will do something to make you frustrated so that you react, and then they can do something to lock you up. And I don't know if it's a power trip or whatever, but it's very frustrating. And this is coming, I feel like I'm quite a controlled person. You know, I try to be, you know, and I find it difficult. So, you know, when I was younger, I was a lot less controlled, and I would have, you know.
I mean, I do want to say, like, you know, you made a comment there about if your house got robbed, you know, your contact to the police, and to an extent that may be true in terms of, you know, being able to claim on the insurance and stuff. But I know that majority of people,
there's no faith.
There is no faith. The majority of people will resort to taking the law into their own hands in order to retrieve their belongings that have been stolen. And so people are, you know, thinking, well, you know, why am I turning to the police? I want to do shit my own way and take. And these riots are just an escalated example of that.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I really want to say is they do feel that they're unheard. You know, and police don't come when you call them. If you call the police from another part of Bristol, they'll come quick. If you call the police from St Paul's or Euston, they're not coming. I've seen it from young, and that's another thing that just winds people up. It just frustrates people. It feels like they're not heard, and these kids aren't being heard. They're not being heard. That's why they're frustrated. That's why they're angry. You know, that's why these kids around here are the ones who are rioting. You know. And I guess that's really, you know, there's so many strong opinions on this, and we could talk for a long time on it, and, you know, hopefully we'll be able to cover it more in the future as well, once everything's settled down and we can really look at what's been going on. But for the moment, just keep coming with your comments. You know, we really want to hear what you have to say, so log on to Facebook. We've got the Shauna and Joe Show, search it up and you'll find it there, comment there. We're on Twitter as well, so it's at the S&J Show. So check us out there as well. Obviously South Blessed, check out the website, all of our videos go up on there. They've got some really good community videos going on there as well.
Yeah, definitely just want to repeat that really. Just thanks for all the support we've been getting for our first episode. This obviously was a Riot special, but we will be back with more topical discussion shows. Just, you know, keep watching this space.
And yeah, wanted to say thank you to a few people as well. Thank you for everybody who has been involved. We've already said that, but we really mean it. This is a community project, and we need you to do what we're doing. You're the people it's aimed at, and we want to hear your views on it. Also, thanks to everyone who's helped us out. Couldn't have done it without southblessed.co.uk, so big shout to them, as always, because they're making this happen. and as well with the music.
Yeah, we want to thank Do Music for supplying us with the soundtrack. Enough love to Amari and DJ.
Absolutely, and if anybody else that we've forgotten, it's not because it's not out of any disrespect, you know. It's just been a busy few days, but thanks very much for tuning in, guys, and like Shauna said, this was a special. We'll be back with more topical debates sometime soon in the future.